Hey, everybody, welcome to the RunDot podcast. Today, we are talking about how to measure the intensities of our workouts. Put more simply, should we pace ourselves by pace or heart rate or power? Well, we want to know what RunDot has to say. So let's find out. And we're joined by professional triathlete and coach Elizabeth James. She's been coaching runners and triathletes since 2014. And I'm Carrie Tellefson, Olympian broadcaster and your guide to the world of RunDot. We treat the show like any good workout. We'll start with the warm-up question. We'll settle into our main set. And then we'll wind down with having Coach Elizabeth answer our audience questions on the cool down. Lots of good stuff today. So let's get after it.
This is the RunDot podcast, the running show that brings you world-class coaching with every conversation. Let's get started with today's warm-up.
All right, Elizabeth, for our warm-up question today, what is your favorite movie that features the sport of running as a key part of the action or the plot?
Kind of a tough question here because I feel like I like every movie that has to do with running. I'm like, have those on repeat. My husband is probably going to be so disappointed because I'm not saying anything with like Prefontaine, but I'm going to have to go with our classic Chariots of Fire.
And doon, 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 doon.
Exactly. Oh, I'm glad you put the song in because I can't sing, but that's going on in my head right now. So yes.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, like I love it. I mean, the running story is fantastic, but then, I mean, you've got those deeper themes of like perseverance, faith, personal identity. So it just resonates really well with me. I love it.
Yeah.
How about you?
And on your Instagram, I can see your faith is really like at the forefront. So that's pretty cool. I need to go back and watch Chariots of Fire. It's been a long time.
There we go. Movie night. We got it set.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, we could do that with RunDot. Maybe we do a big watch party. We should do that. Okay. We'll talk to Andrew about it. But my favorite, and you mentioned it, Prefontaine, like, I don't know, it's so tragic and it's hard to be like, that's my favorite movie. Like the story is so hard. And I kind of know his sister a little bit. So just knowing that is weird. And then actually like one of my college coaches, he recruited him. Like there's just like this inner twining of all these things with Prefontaine, but just to know how hard he fought for our sport as professional runners, like that to me is so inspiring. And then just to see the clips that they actually have of him running way back in the day, like just so inspiring. Like how gutsy and gritty was he? And, I wish he wouldn't have gotten in that car that night, but he was so young. And I think we all forget that, how young he was. And he made a terrible mistake, right? But what a guy. I mean, forever, he is such a legend. And, even my daughter who is just getting into the sport is like, yeah, Prefontaine he's such a cool story. He has such a cool story and very inspirational. So yeah, tell your husband I'm with him on that.
Okay. Yes, we still got it in there.
Well, we want our audience to chime in as well. So we'll ask the question on all of our social media accounts at RunDot for sure. And we want to know what your favorite movie is. Find us on all socials, everybody. Let us know.
Let's go.
All right. Well, let's get into the main set. All right. So to do any run workout, Elizabeth, there has to be a way for us to measure how easy or how hard we're supposed to run throughout the workout. The most common mistake is that we're going too easy, right? Or that we're not pushing hard enough. So I want to know how you figure out our power, our pace, our heart rate, all that stuff, and how you train your athletes. And now actually how you train yourself.
Yeah, I'm so excited to dig into this today. I feel like this is a very common question that people have
Mm.
as they're getting started in running or as they're progressing. They're like, what do I use? How do I know what I'm supposed to be doing for each workout? What metric do I look at? And so we're really just going to dive in and break that all down for everybody today.
Yeah. Okay. So this is your first time on the RunDot podcast. I mean, how's it going so far?
I think okay so far. I mean,
Okay. Yes.
I'm not sweating yet. We'll see.
I am. I was just thinking that. I'm like, oh, I'm starting to sweat. Like just starting to think of these workouts and how we're supposed to, figure out how we're doing. But okay, so I want to know a little bit more about you first. You're a professional triathlete, but supposedly the run is your fave, which I love to hear, obviously. So how did you get into this whole thing? How did you grow up? Like, were you always someone that thought I'm going to be a triathlete someday or no? Tell me all about it.
Yeah, very much had no idea that this is where I would end up. I honestly didn't even hear about the sport of triathlon until a few years after college. Um, I didn't understand, like, running as a sport itself either. So to be here in this seat today and say that the running's my favorite, that I love running races, that I'm competing in the pro field for triathlon is kinda, like, still a dream. I kinda came to running via, like, soccer and then my husband. So I I say that I'm a soccer player turned to runner turned to triathlete. We just kinda had that
Okay.
progression. So I think I always loved running before I ever even knew that it could be a sport itself. It was just something that I did as part of the game. And yeah, we ran a lot during practice, but most of the time it was with the soccer ball at our feet. And even like our long runs, coach would have us like go out and I mean, we'd run a few miles, but we were dribbling the entire time. And so I didn't really ever think of running as being on its own without a soccer ball at my feet. But then I met my husband and he was into running. And I always joke that, like, I got into running to impress a guy, and as I said, he's my husband now, we've been married for almost 15 years, so I think, like, mission accomplished. I was able to impress him enough, to get a date. But, yeah, he was the fantastic runner. I mean, he ran track and cross country in high school, he ran cross country in college, and so as we started dating, I was like, "Oh, yeah, I run too, like, I need to run to stay in shape for soccer," so we'd, like, go out on runs together, and then as we started dating, we dated long distance, so he went to college in Illinois, I went to college in Nebraska, and we would just pick a race, and that would kind of be what we would work toward together, but individually a few states away, and then date weekends were traveling to the race, and so, gosh, we had some in Iowa, I mean, some in Nebraska and Illinois, we went to Memphis, and we would just pick an event, train for it, and then we'd both travel, and that was kind of our date weekend. So, yeah, I picked up running to spend more time with him, impress him, date him, and, I'd say it worked out not only for a great marriage, but, a lot of fun along the way and led me to the sport of triathlon as well.
That is so cool. Does he do triathlons, did you say, as well?
He has done a few triathlons, but,
Okay.
I mean, he just loves the running. I mean, by the time that
That's
he
his
got to
thing.
the run, he was so discouraged. He was like, "This is dumb. People are already done." Like, I just had no fight left for, the run at the end because I already see people at the finish line. So, I mean, he does all 3 sports, does great cross training. He's a
Mhm,
fantastic supporter and Sherpa for me, but, I mean,
mhm.
yeah, he would much prefer to just stick to the running races than anything in triathlon.
We're flip-flop in this household. My husband's a five-time Ironman and loves doing all of the things, and I am, like, deathly afraid of being on the bike.
Ooh.
I'm like, I get so in the zone on things that I'm like, there is no way someone's gonna open a door and I am not gonna just go right into that car. Like, you know
Yeah.
how most people crash on the bike? Like, that will be me probably in the first, like, week of trying to train for a triathlon. So, I'm gonna stick to the ground and stick to my 2 feet on the ground and, and I'll, be with your husband on those runs. We'll be cheering for you and Charlie. My
Wait,
Charlie,
yeah.
right? Your husband's a Charlie, right?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, so
That's so
nice.
cool.
Charlie's are good guys. I know. Well, what's next for you? Like, are you more of a half Ironman, a Ironman? Are you more of a Olympic distance? What do you do? What's your fave?
Oh, the longer the better.
Okay.
For me, I love the full Ironman distance.
Mm,
The last couple years I've kind of been coming back from injury, and so I haven't raced a full in a little bit. I really just stuck to the half distance this year so that I could keep the runs a little bit shorter, run
mhm.
volume a little bit more manageable for me. But yeah, the longer the better. So I'm really looking at going back to a lot of the marathons and the full Ironmans for 2026.
Do you ever just run a marathon?
I do. I haven't done it as much once I started competing in the pro field, but honestly, that's my most favorite. I mean, even more so than the triathlon, like standalone marathon. My husband and I started our journey to do one in all of the 50 states. Of course, we thought about that after we had done the one in Nebraska like 6 times. So we we're like, oh man, like we could be like 6 more races further along in this journey. I think I've got 19 states done so
Oh,
far, and we took a little bit of a pause as I'm kinda focus more on the triathlons, but yeah, we'll
Yeah.
get back to that and go back to a
That's
lot of the standalone marathons, I'm sure.
Have you been to Minnesota yet then?
Yes, yeah, we did the Mankato one, I mean,
Oh,
we're
it's
not
beautiful.
against repeating yeah, Mankato is beautiful, and
Yeah.
it's because my brother and sister-in-law were going to law school there at the time, and
Okay.
so, I mean, family visit, free housing, couldn't quite beat
Yeah.
that, but gosh, there's so many good ones in Minnesota too, like, oh,
I know.
I yeah,
Grandma's Twin Cities, you need to let me know when you come. So,
okay, deal. We'll repeat that
that's
one. That'll be
okay, good.
alright.
Okay, good. All right. Well, before we talk about pacing a workout by power, pace, and heart rate, let me ask you this. When we train, why is it important even to monitor our effort in the first place? Like, can't we just go by feel?
I mean, we can go by feel, but monitoring effort and like training in specific zones, it really is important, especially when athletes are training with purpose. And when I think of, somebody listening to this podcast and really working on their running, I think of it much more as for training than just for exercise. And so yeah, if you're going out and you're exercising, like you can probably get pretty far just based off of feel. But if we're
Hmm.
really thinking about training and working toward a specific goal and wanting to increase our run performance, then we do want to be specific about how we do that. And training in specific zones allows athletes to target the different physiological systems and therefore we're effectively managing the training benefits of it. So each zone that an athlete trains in corresponds to a particular intensity level that develops these certain adaptations within the body. So it might be that we're building our aerobic endurance, we're working on our lactate threshold, we're trying to, really push up our anaerobic capacity. And we want to do that, with the right amount of time in each of those zones so that we're not under training and, not developing as much as we could, or we're not overtraining and we're risking illness or injury. And so training with that precision really helps an athlete progress toward their performance goals, helps them manage fatigue, improves recovery, and then yeah, they just are able to improve when they're training more specifically.
Yeah. But I mean, there's so many things and so many ways to do this. So, like, how and what's your best advice on how to best measure power, pace, and heart rate while we're training?
Yes, yeah, there are a number of ways to do this, and I would say that the best way to measure these metrics is kind of using a combination of tools. So, a
Hmm.
GPS running watch paired with a heart rate monitor strap, that's probably pretty typical. And then optionally, like you could have a running power meter like foot pod, and that's gonna
Hmm.
provide very accurate and actionable data that's going to be in addition to, your GPS watch and the heart rate monitor chest strap. I think that combination, those 3 tools, is going to get you the most accurate metrics. But, I mean, there's such great advances in technology that you don't have to have all of those gadgets to get started. I mean, I think that's one of the things that makes me so excited about the way that RunDot is positioned. You can use RunDot from your phone. Like, carry your phone with you as you run. That's gonna help you record your time, and you can still train effectively with that. So,
Hmm.
I think ideally, yeah, we've got a GPS watch, we've got our heart rate monitor strap on, maybe adding a foot pod onto our shoe. But you don't have to have all of those 3 things to train well either.
Yeah. I mean, you would say first and foremost, just get a watch. If you're going to invest in something, get a watch that has GPS and might give us a rough idea of our heart rates and things like that.
Mhm. Yes. Yeah. I think kind of in that order, like, that's where we wanna start.
Yeah.
Get a GPS watch. Thankfully, they're not as expensive as they used to be. I'm very much like you need to have heart rate. The watches are getting better in terms of
Hmm.
giving us an idea of heart rate, but I still think the chest strap is superior and just making sure that that's as accurate as possible.
Do you remember? You probably don't. I don't even know how old you are. I may be really like way older than you, but there was the first, I swear, first GPS watch that I had. It was like this oblong type
Oh,
watch.
yeah.
It
It
was
was like a brick.
huge.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it was
And I
heavy.
don't
It
it
was
was heavy
heavy.
and it did not work for me
No,
at
no, no.
all. I mean,
Yeah.
I love now. I use Garmin, but like I still I still have a hard time when I go to the track or even do intervals. Like, for one, I can't really see it anymore, hence my big readers. And also it's like for me, I haven't been as consistent with my workouts to figure out how to do the watch. Like I can program a workout in there, but if I just go out and I'm like, I'm gonna do a fartlek today and trying to figure out how to hit the laps and all that, like the Timex for me is what I used for years and it just comes naturally. Like I almost need the old school,
You just have your
coaching
stopwatch
watch,
there.
stopwatch. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do
Hey,
you
you know
use?
that would work too.
I know. I know it does. What do you use though on a daily basis? Like, do you wear an Aura ring? Like, do you have just a watch and a heart strap? What's like in your routine?
Yeah, I've got my Garmin watch. I mean, just like you, I love it.
Mhm.
It only comes off to, recharge it, so that's kind of a
Yeah, me
permanent
too.
marker on my wrist. Definitely got
Like
the
a
tan
permanent
line.
tan. Yes.
Yes, yes, exactly.
Mhm.
And then I have the Garmin heart rate, chest strap as well,
Okay.
to pair with it, and then I've used the Stride foot pod for a number of years, and
Okay.
I love that. I've had a number of athletes that use it as well, and I don't use it for every workout, especially, like, where I live right now outside of Dallas, there's
Mm.
not a lot of elevation gain, so
Okay.
most of the time, I don't necessarily need that power as a metric, but some of the running dynamics on there that reports are just also great, and they're a good way
Yeah.
to monitor progress and efficiency as well. So, yeah, I've kinda got that, three-prong combination that I was talking
That's
about
good.
as kind of the ideal setup for running
And
workouts.
it seems doable for sure. I think
Yes,
that seems
yeah,
doable.
yep, yeah.
Um, okay, so we've thrown around these words, power, pace, and heart rate. And I think I'm gonna dig in and let you be the expert here because I think for me as a runner, like I really haven't used a lot of power, numbers and things like that. Like I usually have used pace and heart rate, um, different types of heart rate, resting heart rate versus, what I'm doing at hard intervals and then how come back down on my resting heart rate. Like I monitor that quite a bit, but power is different to me. And I don't know if that's something that comes to you from the triathlon side and like when you're biking and swimming and doing things like that, or if you've always used it. But I would love to hear how you break down and kind of explain all three of those areas: power, pace, and heart rate.
Yeah, definitely. So let's go ahead and just leave power for the end because I
Okay.
think that that's the one that like some people will use, but it's not as
Mhm.
common. And yeah, I think maybe, coming from the triathlon side of things and the bike power, I find that super interesting because I'm like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, we got power on the bike, we got power on the run now too.
Yeah.
But let's go ahead and start with pace.
Okay.
Because I think that this is one that a lot of runners will use and probably one that a lot of them start with as well. So, pace is really just measuring how fast you're moving. And it's expressed as, minutes per mile. So, like an 8-minute mile, or I mean, depending on where you live, maybe we're talking about like, 3 minutes per K, and we're talking kilometers as well. But this is
Mhm.
usually tracked by your GPS device. And I love using pace for workouts because it's directly related to running speed. And it's easy to understand, it's widely used. I mean, if you're, going out to a group run and they're talking about like, all right, well, this group is doing like 10-minute miles. Here's the group that's doing 9-minute miles. This group is going to run 7:30s. Like that's very widely accepted and very widely used within the running space. Um, and so it's a good idea to kind of have an idea of like what your paces are, maybe for your easy run or your interval days. It's great to use for races, for workouts, especially those that are on like predictable courses or something that's like a track. I mean, I always use pace for track workouts because there's no elevation gain. It's very predictable. One
Mhm.
of the things that can be a little bit tricky about using pace is that because it's driven by the GPS device, if the GPS signals are unreliable, then you could get a funky reading. One of the things I remember about this is I was running the Chicago Marathon. And at the beginning, I mean, you are surrounded by all of those tall buildings. And I'm looking at my watch and I'm like, there is no way that I'm running this pace, and it was reading
Right.
so slow. I was like, "I feel like I'm flying," and it's telling me, like,
Mhm.
I'm doing a 12-minute mile. And I was like, "I am not gonna be anywhere close to my time goals if that's the case here." And then, you get out of the city a little bit, out of the interference of those tall buildings, and all of a sudden it's like jumping and it's trying to catch up, and all of a sudden it's like a 3-minute mile. I was like, "Oh, man, I'm world record pace here. Like, this is great." So,
Uh-huh.
yeah, the GPS signals can be interrupted, either big cities or if you're out and, you're doing some trail running and you're have all that
Mhm.
interference maybe from, like, a very heavily wooded area. Um, so there can be some interruptions with using pace as well. It can certainly fluctuate with the environmental conditions as well. So I know we talked about, the interruptions from the signals, but also, I mean, if you're running on something that's super steep terrain or, it's a super windy day, like that's going to also impact your pace. And so those are things where we have to take that into consideration. So yeah, kind of couple pros and cons for using that, but I'd say that it's the most typical. And
Yeah.
then let's move into heart rate. So heart rate, I love this actually, and as a coach, I'm very much a stickler on like athletes. You need to have this. Like you need to have it. You need to understand it. And me as a coach, I want to see this because the
Mm.
heart rate is tracking the physiological response to exercise. So it really shows just how hard your cardiovascular system is working for the demands of the pace that you're running. So I love using heart rate in combination with pace to really understand what's going on internally. And as we mentioned, this is widely accessible with chest straps. A lot of the new GPS watches have it built in as a wrist monitor, which, if you're always using that and you understand like what that correlation is, it can be good. I kind of make my athletes get a chest strap just because I find that to be most reliable. But either way, you're really reflecting the internal effort, and that's just such a helpful metric for really measuring the intensity of the session. The con of this is that there is heart rate lag. And so it's a lagging indicator, which means that the heart rate takes a little bit of time to respond to sudden effort changes. Like and the way that I think of this is, like sprinting up a hill. Okay, once you sprint to the top of the hill, you get to the top and you're like, "Oh my gosh, like my heart rate is pounding," even though you're stopped at the top of the hill. It's like you don't have that effort anymore, but your heart rate is still catching up. It's like, "Oh my gosh, we just sprinted up that hill." And that's what you would see in like a data file as well, that you wouldn't necessarily see the second that you start sprinting that the heart rate responds to that. It's going to take a little while to show that that heart rate has increased. And then you get to the top of the hill, you're not even moving anymore. And your heart rate is still through the roof and your breathing's like, oh my gosh, I definitely
Mhm.
worked so hard. And so that's probably the biggest con I would say is that it is a lagging indicator.
Do
And
you
then
have Do you have athletes do strides before they do a hard track session or, like a tempo run on the roads to kind of get their heart ready to go? I mean, it's just like when we do races, right? Like you'll see a
Mhm.
lot of the pros or maybe the people up front that are trying to really nail a time and they have to get off the line hard. They don't want to go from just thinking around in the corrals to then sprinting. So like that's the same for us when we're doing workouts is we want to sort of get our heart rates accustomed to going really hard. And that's why you do those short, fast sprints to let your heart rate come into it. And it still can take time to get up there, but that helps kind of get the
oh,
heart ready to go.
100%. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, the
Mhm.
strides ahead of the workout, it's preparing the body, and then you're not gonna see as much of a lag because the heart rate's already been up. And
I've
so
been
it
there.
can
Yeah.
it can get that response a little bit earlier.
I think people
Um,
forget to do that. So if you're listening here, like, sometimes they're hard, and especially like for me too now, I'm like, oh, I just kind of want to ease into it, which is fine. But if you have a hard workout that you're trying to nail and you have, 4 by 3 minutes or something, you don't want to waste that whole first 3 minutes by just trying to figure out the heart rate. So like do those few strides. It doesn't take that many, 4 to 6, maybe 50 to 60 meters long. And just take that extra 2 minutes to do a hard out and then rest for a second and do another hard back and do that 2 times. And your heart rate will love you for it. And actually, the workout will go a little bit better too.
I'm so glad you brought that up because I think sometimes people do forget to do it, but also they're like, "Ah, why do I need to? Like, I'm already gonna be working hard in the workout. Like, why do I
Right.
gotta do these little openers and why do I gotta do the strides?" I mean,
Yeah.
that was fantastic explanation right there. Like, we
Yeah.
need to do that. You're preparing the body to nail those workouts later. So yeah, I
I
mean, you
know.
said it
I think
perfectly.
people I do think people, like, even in a marathon, I'm always joking with people, like, I don't even know how to warm up for a marathon. Like, I'm a 1,500 5K gal. Like, I'm used to doing high knees, kick butts, all the things, right? But even like before a marathon in Chicago, for instance, my neighbor ran and he crushed it. Way to go, Nick. He ran 2:39
Woo!
and I think it was
Whoa.
2:39. Yeah, he broke 2:40 in his second marathon. Second marathon.
Oh,
He took
that's amazing.
11 minutes off. I know, he's amazing. But, when you're standing in those corrals, like, for a long time and you go from 0 to 60, right off the line, you have to figure out and that could be where you do high knees and you do some running arms and things to just stimulate the heart a little bit because otherwise it's such a shock to the system that you feel
Right.
terrible. You're like, "I'm not gonna be able to run this race." Like, we wanna get our mind ready to go, our heart ready to go, and yeah. So, long story short, do some strides, peeps.
Yes, exactly. Well, oh, love that. I feel like I'm gonna use this clip already, send it to a couple athletes, be like, "Stop skipping your strides. See, Carrie
Right.
says you can't skip your
I
strides."
know, and I need to practice what I preach. So, okay, sorry,
Well, there you
back
go.
to it.
I
I
did remind
digress.
her, couldn't remember.
Yes.
All right. So yeah, we've talked about pace, we've talked about heart rate, and then yeah, let's get into power. So running power, it's really just measuring the force and the workload that your body exerts during running. And as I mentioned, like this can be captured by those specialized foot pods that you just kind of clip onto your shoe. What I love about power is it's just reflecting the actual mechanical effort and it's independent of those external factors. So, it doesn't matter if it's windy, it doesn't matter if you're on a hill, it doesn't matter if it's hot, like, power is power. And I think, coming from the triathlon world, we're so used to that on the bike, like, power is power. Whatever your power is, like, it doesn't matter if you're going into a headwind or you've got a tailwind at your back. If you're, supposed to push 200 watts, like, we're pushing 200 watts. And
Hmm,
we can use just kind of that real-time metric for running as well. And this can really help pace efforts more precisely, especially if you're on varied terrain. I coached an athlete and she lived in an incredibly hilly area. We always joke that we were complete opposites. Like I have to work really hard to find any sort of elevation, and she had to work really hard to find any sort of flat surface. There was one track in her town, and it was typically used by like the high school students, and so there wasn't good access. And if she needed a flat surface, it was a treadmill. And so she's like, I don't want to run on the treadmill, but every time I go out, like I've got so much elevation gain. And so we were able to use power as a great metric for her because she's going up and down. And it was very difficult for her to do any type of interval work based off of pace because of the varied terrain. And so we would use power as a metric so she could keep a steady power number even though the pace was actually fluctuating depending on if she was going up or downhill. So, yeah,
yeah.
it's fantastic. I love it. It can be an added cost for people that, like, aren't as familiar with power. It can be a really, like, confusing thing to get started because 'cause they're like,
Mm.
"Wait, my pace is gonna change, but the power is the same." So I would say it's maybe not as intuitive for people to use at first, but a lot of athletes that start using it love it.
Okay, so I wanna break this down just a little bit because I have to be very frank, I have never used any kind of power as a tool for me when I was training, and that is not the last few years, my training has not been very specific. So, I wanna understand, so, like, for instance, when we know our heart rates, a lot of times when we're getting really specific with it, we'll go and do a VO2 max test, or we'll get some kind of testing done, so we really know the proper numbers for us to use and not just the standard formula of 220 minus your age, right? Like that's close, but a
Mhm.
lot of us are different than that, right? Like every heart is different. So you can't just have one formula for it. So how would I start with this power type of training? Like, do you just go and learn how you are when you're running, like by watching some of the metrics? Do you have a test for it that you would recommend to go get, like a VO2 max for your heart rate? How do you figure it out as an individual, but then also have your coach, like, know what kinda numbers to tell you to use?
Yeah, it's fantastic. So a lot of like RunDot athletes that are maybe starting to implement power that they haven't done it before, you can just add power as another metric to the assessments that you've already been doing. And so, for
In the
example,
app.
like, pardon?
In the app.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And so like, for example, I've had a couple athletes and I mean this is on the trot out side, but it certainly correlates to the run dot side as well. They've been doing 5K assessments for the last 3 years. And all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, awesome. I got like the Stride Power Pod. Like, could we implement using power as well?" It's like, "Yep, fantastic. Like, let's clip that onto your shoe for your next 5K." And now from that 5K assessment, we can look at what is the functional threshold heart rate? What was the pace? Let's find out what your threshold pace was. And then we can also correlate that to what is your functional threshold power from that 5K
Mm,
assessment. So, any assessment that the athlete would typically do, we can just add power as that additional metric to it. I mean, there's some, different protocols depending on the like foot pod that you buy. They have some recommendations to help you kind of zero that in if it's your first time like doing an assessment. But for a lot
mhm.
of athletes, they can just add power as that additional metric to the assessments that they've consistently been doing for the last few years,
Yep.
which is great. So very, very easy to implement. And yeah, just like you would have heart rate zones, just like you would have pace zones, now you've got your power zones as well.
Oh my goodness, so many numbers. It's so
Yeah.
cool though. I mean, once you get the hang of it, I'm sure it's just like another thing, like watching your sleep and all those used to be calories, which some people still want to count their calories. A lot of us don't do that. But I mean, there's all these great numbers to follow. So when you do go do a run dot workout, right? Like when we're in our run dot app,
Mhm.
how does it tell you what metric? Like, does the coach tell us that? Does the workout tell us, like, today we're going to focus on power or today is on pace or it's all heart rate today? Like, how does it tell us as athletes? And maybe, some of us don't have personal coaches. We're just using the app. Like, how can you explain that?
Yes, the app makes it so easy. I love this, and there's just little icons there. I don't know why, but they just make me smile. They make me so happy. They're just so
It's
cute. I'm
fun.
like, "Oh, it tells me exactly what to do."
You
So
get
like
warm fuzzies from the app?
right, exactly. It's just like, "Aw." And maybe it's because 'cause we're starting with, like, the little heart icon.
Ah,
So yeah, if you pull up your workout and there's a little heart icon next to it, like, follow heart rate. Makes sense?
mm,
Yeah, if
hmm
you work out and there's a little clock icon, then we're following pace. And so that just makes it so easy for somebody using RunDot. They pull it up and just depending on what little icon is there next to the workout, all right, heart, follow heart rate, clock, follow pace. If
yeah.
you have a device that's connected and it records power and you're supposed to use power for that session, then there's going to be a nice little lightning bolt. So,
Mm.
if you don't have power, no big deal. It's just going to show you the heart or the clock. If you do have power and that's the metric you're supposed to use, then look for the little lightning bolt. So yeah, it's like little emojis in the app and it just tells you what to do.
So some people use RunDot alongside their Strava because, like, for me, I used to only write down everything that I did, and now
Mhm.
I like to have Strava because it is kinda like my training log, but it also gives me that map of, elevation, and I know that RunDot all that does all that too, but, do you find that a lot of people use both?
I do. Most
Yeah.
of the time they have their run dot workout just pushed to Strava, and
Uh-huh.
that's just
It's
because
like their
they
training
want.
log.
Yes.
Yeah.
And honestly, I find it's even more for the social component that
Yeah.
it's just like, "Hey, what did my friends do? What did
Right.
what did I do?" They're just used to using Strava.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's just the social part of it, but I mean, it pushes right to it. So if you're used to
Yeah.
using Strava, if you love getting those kudos, if you love titling them fun things and putting a little joke on there, like
Yeah.
fantastic. You still got that option.
Okay, good. I love it. So I want to know when and why will RunDot give us a session that is based on heart rate? Like, why does it all of a sudden just spit that out?
Yes, yeah. So, if you see that little heart icon,
Uh-huh.
um, The goal of it is to, like, develop specific aerobic or cardiovascular adaptations, and those are gonna be best done, or, like, best achieved by training at a defined heart rate range. And so, a couple examples of this, like, if you've got an aerobic workout, I mean, this is sometimes known as, like, your zone 2 runs, and this has a
Mhm.
specific heart rate target because we wanna make sure that we're keeping the effort, like, easy to moderate, making sure that we're staying in the aerobic zone because we want that efficient fat burning. We want the cardiovascular improvements that can really only happen when we're staying aerobic. Another example is like a recovery workout. Like recovery workouts will often use heart rate targets just to make sure that we're keeping the effort light. Because again, like the heart rate is just that physiological response. Like, how is the body responding to this workout? If we're really fatigued, if we had just raced, like our heart rate might be a little bit elevated, our resting heart rate might be up. And so if we go out and we do this workout, like we don't want to necessarily be like, oh, I always run an 8 minute mile. Like I'm going to run 8 minute
Mhm.
pace. Well, if you're super fatigued or if you just race, like an 8 minute mile might be too hard. So we
Yep.
really need to go by heart rate and see how is the body responding to this. Maybe I need to ease back a little bit more. Maybe today, that's closer to an 8:45 because I just raced or I just had a
Uh,
super hard like track session the day before. And so using heart rate as a metric there really just make sure that we keep that in the aerobic zone and we get those physiological, like, responses from the body that we want.
Yeah, and I think it's important for people to understand we don't just throw our heart rate monitor on for those hard days. Like, there's a
Mhm.
really good, I mean, I would have to say a lot of coaches are more so putting that on their athletes for their recovery days to make sure they aren't going too hard.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, as a coach, that's one of the things I would say, like, I'm even more so looking at your heart rate on those recovery days, on the aerobic days. Like,
Mhm.
certainly we're looking at it for, the intensity and looking for the heart rate decoupling and everything, but yeah, like, keep those easy days easy, and the main way that we can make sure that it's easy enough is by looking at the body's response in the heart rate reading.
So I want to talk a little bit about not only looking at numbers, which is such a good thing to do, really, because it's an easy metric. Like, I don't know how many times I'm going to tell this story, but I'm going to tell it every time that I think about it because it's just crazy. I was supposed to do a threshold workout one day, a 20-minute tempo or something like that. And I was 10 minutes in and I was like, what the heck is going on? Like, my heart rate was super high, but I was easily able to talk to my coach at the time and like, I don't know what's going on. I can't run the pace that you want me to run today, like, without going up to almost max, right? And then
Mhm,
12 hours later, I was vomiting, like, I had the stomach flu, and I didn't know I was sick yet. I
mhm.
felt okay. I just could tell in my heart rate in the workout that my body was working way harder, or at
Yes.
least my heart rate was
Something's off.
higher than yeah, like, I couldn't slow the heart rate, but I couldn't also run, like, it was just so crazy. So, it's such a good thing to really, like, know, and obviously, there's gonna be times where you're gonna get ticked off and you're gonna throw the heart rate monitor off and be like, "Screw it, I'm just gonna do the workout by perceived effort," right? Like, I'm just gonna go and do what I want. But we don't
Mhm.
want you to do that every single time, like, it is such a good metric to have.
Yes, absolutely, and, I mean, your story is a great example, like, the body will tell us what's going
Yeah.
on. It's just like,
Mm.
are we listening and will we listen? Will we adhere to what it's saying?
Yeah, it takes time sometimes to fully trust it, I think that's the big thing.
Mhm.
I remember
Yeah.
Sonia Sullivan who won, Olympic silver medal in Sydney, and she went to Villanova, and she came and did 5 by a K. I think she did 8 by a K. We were to hold on for 5 of them with her, and she was doing them at threshold pace, and we were doing them at, like, race pace effort. It was so crazy. But I remember her getting super ticked, but then at her heart rate because she was supposed to be going easy, but yet she was getting kinda into it, right? And she wanted to go harder. And for an Olympic silver medalist to be kind of mad at her heart rate too was good for us athletes to be like,
Mhm,
even they get frustrated with some days of being able to say, I have to slow so I hit the right range. I can't
mhm.
just hammer through every single workout. There's a time and place. And I do want to hear your explanation of why we don't always use the heart rate monitor. Like when you go to the track sometimes and you're doing 400-meter repeats and you're getting ready for a 5K, there's certain times where we do wanna just go out and push hard or run that certain pace and let the heart rate just be where it's gonna be.
Mhm. Yeah, and just as much as we wanna look at it, like, there's a time and place to do it, and as we talked about, like, on the RunDot workouts, there are some of them that have the clock. Like, we are
Mhm.
going by pace this time, like, we will let the heart rate be what it's gonna be, and we'll use that information as a secondary metric, like, if you're working with a coach, they're gonna look at what the heart rate was during those intervals, but they don't want you to use that as what to follow. Like, they're asking you to do this based off intensity, to do it based off pace. And, I mean, part of the reason for that is that while heart rate is excellent for managing, like, steady state and aerobic efforts, it's really not ideal for those high intensity workouts, like those 400s at the track.
Yeah.
And where we want, to look at those 400-meter repeats or whatever, the high intensity workout is, we want that kind of immediate and precise feedback. And we talked a little bit earlier about, how there is a little bit of heart rate lag, and that's a lagging indicator. That's not going to be as much real time. And because the heart rate takes a little bit to catch up when suddenly increase your intensity, for short intense intervals or like sprints. I mean, goodness, if you're doing like 100-meter sprints, it's kind of the same thing as running up the hill. Like, you're not gonna be looking at what your heart rate is for that, because by the time you're done, then maybe your heart rate is going to respond in that correct zone. So, yeah,
Yeah.
those are places where, because of the lagging indicator, we wanna look at things that are real time, and that would be like pace or power.
When we're talking about pace, that's a hard thing. Like,
Mhm.
even when I was racing at a world class level, and there were times where I'm like, I want to try to run the American record. I never got it, but I was gunning for it, right?
Mhm.
And so a lot of our workouts were based off of that pace. Like, how do you tell athletes now, when they're like, I want to run really fast. Maybe they have no idea what kind of pace or what kind of race time they can try to achieve. How do you guys as athlete and coach and within RunDot like figure out what kind of pace to actually run those workouts at?
Yeah, so the assessments are a key piece here, because from the assessments we can look at specifically tailoring the zones that are appropriate for the athlete, and then basing workouts off of, looking to maximize their threshold. Some of the workouts though are fantastic. I mean, like the math shuttles workout where it's like, hey, go all out and sprint. I mean, that's a great workout, but it's also a great, like, reflection piece as an athlete and as a coach to be like, "All right, what was that top end speed?" And, I mean, sometimes the athletes surprise you and they're like, killing it on those, like, quick sprints, and you're like, "All right, dang, like, we can push a little harder on some of these threshold intervals, like, you said that, those were feeling alright, and you've got a max speed here that's crazy fast, like, we can work with this." So, I love that too because on some of the workouts, it kinda just opens the door and tells the athlete, like,
Mhm.
"Go run hard." Like, "Yeah, sprint this section here. Let's see what the pace is." And and
Yeah.
that's where, like, as fantastic as all of these metrics are, it's still great to think about our perceived effort. And
Yeah.
using perceived effort as a guide is fantastic because it really is like, okay, go run fast, go run hard, go sprint. And then let's look at what those values ended up being. And so this is one of those things that it's like, as awesome as technology is, like, we still want to be in tune with our body. Like, how did that feel? I think maybe my athletes get a little frustrated with that question because, I mean, they get done with a session, data file looks fantastic. I'm like, "And how did you feel?" And they roll their eyes because 'cause they're like, "Oh, we knew you were gonna ask that again." And it's like, "Okay, but
Uh-huh.
let's think about perceived effort." Like, if your watch goes crazy on race day, like, how are you gonna feel? How are you gonna monitor that effort? Like, this is still an important part to be in tune with our bodies. So, yeah, there's a time and a place for all the technology, but there's also the time and the place to put that aside and, "Hey, go sprint hard," and then, "How did you feel?"
I think that's really important to talk about the RPEs, right? Rate of preserved effort. I think when you're doing a threshold workout, that short answer pace is key. I mean, you should be able to talk to your coach or your training partner in a very short sentence or, be able to respond in a short way. Um, you know, Intervals at VO2 max, you shouldn't really be able to talk much besides, stop talking to me.
Uh-huh. Maybe a
You
grunt
give
here and
me
there. How
treat.
you doing? Ugh.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah,
Thumbs up.
exactly. Thumbs up. Yeah, right. Or, no, I gotta cut
Yeah.
it.
Done.
All of those things. But I do think that's important. And it sounds like you as a coach and athlete really believe in that too. RPE, like it's
Mhm.
not something we should just do away with because we have all this technology.
Yes, absolutely. It's still so important for athletes to really monitor how they're feeling during it and get a
Mm,
sense like what does easy feel like? What does it feel like to run at threshold?
yeah.
How hard is it when you sprint and you're at VO2 max?
Mm. Okay, so I'm a big believer in this, in pace and heart rate. But you're starting to get me on this power thing, and you really, really think that all of us should be in tune with that as well.
I love it. It's something that I would say, it comes after the pace and the heart rate for a lot of athletes. Can you train without it? 100%. I mean, of the athletes I coach, I would say maybe 30% of them are using power. And it
Okay.
really depends on like, is that appropriate for them? I mean, for the athlete I coached where she had no flat terrain, 100% we needed to use
Yeah.
power. For a couple of
Interesting.
the other athletes that I coach in the Dallas area that can do their workouts on basically a good repeatable flat section, not so much. Like they've talked about incorporating power and we could, but unless they're going to start adding like a whole bunch of varied terrain or they're looking at that for a race that's going to
Mhm.
have a bunch of varied terrain or some environmental factors that'll be a big influence, it's not their best investment. Just
Mm.
there's other things that they can invest in for their training that are probably
Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
give them, like, a little bit more benefit.
Okay. As
Okay.
we get,
As
close
you
to
know
wrapping this up a little bit, I want to know on race day, what are you
Mhm.
looking at? Are you looking at pace? Are you looking at heart rate? Or are you looking at power? All three? None of them? Just balls to the wall. Let's go. What is it?
Oh, yeah, great question. On I'd say on race day, like choosing whether an athlete is going to run by heart rate or, pace or power kind of depends on the race distance, the conditions, and then a little bit on like their personal preferences as well. But whatever you're doing on race day, like we need to have practiced that in training. And that's
Mm,
kind of a key thing here. Like if you are, going by pace, then you don't wanna all of a sudden be looking at a power number. And same thing, like, if you have always been training by pace, you don't wanna just all of a sudden look at your heart rate on race day. So
mhm,
you need to have a good understanding of what metric it is that you're going to use for those races. For longer races where, like, managing your effort over time and, like, conserving energy is key, heart rate can be a great indicator. I coach an ultra runner, and we look at heart rate a lot for his training, on those long days, and we look at it a lot for those races as well. Because if
mm,
he's out there for 100 miles and he's burning matches and spiking his heart rate like crazy, like, there's not a lot of opportunity to come back from that, and he's got a long walk to the finish line. Now, if we're looking at something like a shorter distance event, somebody that's racing like a 5K or a 10K, pace, absolutely. Like we're looking at pace for that. You can use heart rate maybe as a secondary metric, but oftentimes for those shorter distance events, this is kind of the most intuitive. It's the simplest to use on race day, especially if it's like a flat course.
mm,
Now again, if we're climbing a mountain for a 5K, like then we might want to look at something different. But
yeah,
yeah, I think most of the athletes that I coach are using pace as the primary metric on race day. But if it's something longer, maybe somebody that's doing their first marathon, or again, we're getting into those ultra distances, heart rate can be a really helpful metric just to make sure that we have an appropriate energy expenditure and
mm.
physiological response for that longer day.
I just keep thinking that eventually RunDot's gonna be able to let you follow your athletes and, like, in real time, and then, like, I keep thinking, "Okay, in the Chicago Marathon, is Coach Elizabeth gonna be, in my ear saying, like, 'Okay, forget that split. Now, your heart rate's low, we gotta start pushing it.'" Like,
Uh-huh.
I keep thinking of all the new ways that this, our training and our racing is gonna go, because that has to be, like, next, right? We have to be able to
I would think
interact
so.
somehow, even
Yeah.
already.
I mean, it's kinda like the Tour de France, with their earphones or the NASCAR
Yeah,
drivers, like although
but we don't
I
do
don't
that on the
know.
run scene.
I'm
Like,
trying to
that's so
decide if my
different.
athletes would like that or
I
not.
know,
Like, would
I
they like
know.
me in your ear, or would they be like, Shush, I don't
Yes.
know.
Well,
Just
I
let me do
used to
the
tell my
thing."
dad, like, "Throw a rock at me and wake me up mid-race," because you know how you, like, in this 5K especially, you kinda, like, forget that you're racing, and then all of a sudden you're like, "Oh, no, there's 800
Like,
meters to
"Gotta
go."
go."
So, maybe it would be fun to have someone in my ear being like, "Wake up! Like, you
There you
gotta
go.
get
Yeah.
going."
"You've
Well,
got
this has
2
been
more
so
beats,
much
you can
fun.
push a little harder."
Exactly, you're way low, come on.
Yeah.
Well, this has been great. I can see how people love having you coach them, Elizabeth, and I'm so excited to now watch you when you get ready to race. When are you racing next?
So I'm done for this season. I
Okay.
and I laugh because, they just announced that Dallas Little Elm is a pro race for the 70.3. There's a new
Okay.
70.3. It's in Dallas, but it's in March, and I was this is terrible, but I was honestly kind of hoping it wasn't a pro race because the water is going to be so cold.
Oh, cool.
And I'm a baby for cold water, and so at one point I
Mhm.
was like, "Well, cool, if it's not a pro race, then" I'm just like, "Oh, bummer, couldn't race that one, I'll
Yeah.
just coach." And all of a sudden they announced it was a pro race, I'm like, "Gosh, the logistics of that are
Oh.
easy," but I am such a baby for the cold water, and if it's under 60, and it totally will be, it's gonna be like high 50s for the water temp, I'm like, "Ugh."
Oh.
So, I have to either wrap my brain around swimming in the cold
Yep.
water, Little Elm,
Yep.
or I'll wait till, like, May to race when, water temperatures are much more manageable, so, I'm not
Well, it
sure
sounds
yet,
like
but
we need to get you a pool sponsor so you can, turn the heat down on that water and get used to it.
there we go. Yeah, just oh, burr. We'll see what happens.
Oh, okay. Well, keep us posted, all right? But we have one more question. It's a cool down question, which I think are so fun. These are great. And this one's coming from Tyler, Texas. How close is that to you? Do you know?
Oh gosh, geography questions. It's far enough that I don't know exactly. I feel like it's a couple hours. I'm terrible with
Okay.
geography, so
Okay.
I
Well,
mean, Texas is huge. I have no idea.
well, Gina, we're giving you a shout out from Tyler, Texas, and sounds like we need Elizabeth to make a trip around Texas to see where you're at.
There
But
we
she
go.
wants to know, do you get more benefits running early when it's cooler and less sun, but more humidity? Or would you rather wait until later when it's warmer and more sun, but less humidity?
I love this question. This is quite the debate of like, oh, in the early morning, yeah, it's cooler, but the humidity is just
Uh-huh.
brutal. So, let's see, Gina, I would say if your main goal is to kind of maximize the training quality, like with less heat stress, then the earlier run, that's going to be better despite the high humidity. Um, Now, if you are gearing up for a race where you're going to be racing in warm conditions and you're working on that heat adaptation, you need your body to adapt to the hot, sunny conditions, then that later run is going to help in that adaptation process. So, I I would still lean toward the less heat stress in the morning, facing the high humidity. But here's the good news, the best news. Like RunDot utilizes environment normalization. So you're gonna get the right training adaptation and the precise zones no matter when you choose to run. So yeah, for anybody that's debating that, the good news is whatever you choose, like RunDot is gonna make sure that your zones are optimized and you're gonna get the right training response either way.
Yeah. Again, sometimes you just have to trust that training and go for it. I mean, they talk about humidity being the poor man's altitude, right? Like there's benefits from
Mhm.
it, but you do have to adjust. Like your heart rate goes up in humidity and it doesn't want to fall because of the body can't cool itself. So Lots of cool things. Great information. Thank you so much for your time today, Elizabeth. And we
Yeah,
are
it was
rooting for
my pleasure.
you.
This was so fun.
It was. We'll have you back, right?
Well, if you'll have me back, I'll definitely come. I enjoyed it.
Yay. Well, thanks so much and keep getting after it.
Thanks for listening to the RunDot podcast. Help us out by leaving a rating and review on your listening platform of choice. For more opportunities to learn from our coaches, check out our YouTube channel and follow RunDot Training on social. Ready to train with us? Head to rundot.com and get started for free. Until next time, happy training.